Okay, this is the October 29th edition of the BetaSaaSers meeting, and it's just me and Janet for now. And homework 4 question.
Yeah, so my students have their homework for due tonight, and one of the students emailed saying that he's wondering what the AutoGrader is doing that's different he's doing because he noticed that the let's see, I'm sure I get this right. His
Code coverage.
he's getting 92% controller coverage when he runs his coverage report, but then the AutoGrader says he only has 6.63%, which seems very strange.
Yeah, that seems a little bit odd. Here's the deal. This is totally from my recollection, but but from that, I remember that the instructions, the specification, was not clear about what the AutoGrader would be testing as far as code coverage, and that after you ran the AutoGrader and you saw what it complained about, then you might have to go back and look and add a few additional tests to exercise some additional code. Now, uh, it's very possible that that has been updated a little bit, or at least a hint to it, in either the instructions, or maybe Sam often has those videos. I don't know if you watch them, but he has those introductory videos at the beginning of each homework.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he could have mentioned it there, but my
This
recollection.
is a weird thing that's weird.
Yeah,
So no idea why the mismatch, but
yeah.
something
So
to check the instructions for.
right. You dropped for a second, but basically, I don't offhand. I don't know why there would be such a huge mismatch. It depends on, you know, like, okay, have you seen his coverage report?
I haven't. So he simply emailed me, that this is the problem he was
Right.
having. So
So the
yeah, so I
thing
guess
is,
the next thing to do is to actually
one of
look
the
at
things that I
what
would
the
wonder,
AutoGrader is telling him.
knowing how to read that, because it's like, I think it maybe gives a percentage for each module or this or that. So he may be looking at sort of one thing, and the AutoGrader may be looking at stuff overall. But there is this idea that really, to solve the problem, you just need to add a few more tests. Like I think there might even be like one simple method that has an if statement, and unless you sort of add a test to cover the other side, you're sort of getting 1/3 coverage instead of like 100% or 2/3. So that kind of thing. Uh, but I
I've been
would,
trying to read.
yeah, I think it would be worthwhile to look at his particular report and see if he's interpreting that correctly. Um, if he can, you might just say, hey, look more carefully, and if he's smart, he'll figure it out. And I will look for, um, I'm pretty sure there are notes. Let me see. Um, Let me try and find this, one of those old pages. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Like that BetaSaaSers, that old Google sites, homeworks, TDD. I'm just going down there now. There's something interesting. I'll share my screen. Yeah, so let me do the screen share on this. Okay. So working through ZenTest RSpec. This is old.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's this other thing that I also remember. You know, you could look here and see. I don't know. Maybe I'll open up Rose's thing. But this is the other interesting thing. Interesting that they can get the necessary coverage without asserting much. So it's sort of like a homework that if you want to sort of, you know, on the one hand, that if you just follow the instructions, you may not get 100%. But on the other hand, if you just sort of can fake out some coverage, you can sort of you can fake things out without necessarily, you know, doing it like legitimately.
Yeah, I remember there were some oddities with some of the homeworks that way. That
right, and then there's.
Shouldn't I write more tests? And then it went through.
Are you seeing that? This is Rose's thing.
Let's see. I'm seeing chapter 8. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just scanning through that. Okay. Test-driven development. Okay. So these are. Wow, 34 pages. Okay.
All right, so I'll have to go and track that down and see if it gives any hints.
Yeah. And then one other thing, one other place I'm thinking of looking is, and I'm just going to show this if I can find it. Because this is something I knew the existence of, if this pops up, and but I sort of forgot about it. This is the. Are you aware of this? Right.
Yeah, no, I've been using that a lot for the team projects because it gave a lot of useful hints. So yeah, in fact, I have it sitting right here in paper. All right, so this is in section 4. Okay. Working with the AutoGrader, yes. Fun thing, so. Yeah, so I'll have to see if I can get some more information from him. You know, I know some of the students said they had it all done, which is good. I haven't gone and actually pulled the work. This is actually the last of the auto-graded homeworks I'm going to be doing. I had decided that I was going to originally have them do the Oracle of Bacon. Oh. Hi.
Okay. Hey, wait for me more sort of free, but I'll do that afterward. The other place that I started to say, and I was talking about this, was in the GitHub repo. It might have some additional notes about the homework, or you might see exactly what it's covering.
Okay.
Yeah, but definitely, if there's any question about that, throw something out on the email list, and someone will try and answer that.
And I suspect that since I haven't had any of the other students, with questions, that either means they haven't started it, although I know some have told me they finished it, or, it's just, yeah, he's running into a problem. So I know I was trying to reproduce the solution from when I took the class last summer, and I have not been able to get the same coverage even with what looks like it should be the same code. So apparently I have a bug that I have to track down.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see. And now, how do you sort of finalize your deadlines on your assignments?
So what I'm doing on the deadlines is I have them actually, I use Moodle and I have them upload a screenshot with their scores.
Okay. And you don't have a deadline on the edX AutoGrader, right?
No, and I'm actually letting them they can submit it,
Right.
a day late for 10%, 2 days for 25%. Very few students have taken me up on that.
Wow. I'm just the opposite. But, a lot of people don't start. A lot of my students don't really start in earnest until like right before it's due, and they don't realize, no, you can't really do these assignments that way. But I cut out. I don't put in any kind of deadline in edX. We tried that for a while, and it turned out to be more trouble than it's worth. So all I'm saying there is that if it becomes a little bit of an issue, you have the flexibility to deal with that.
Yeah. No, I think he'll be fine. I think he mentioned to me in class he started a bit late, so most of them. Homework 2 was kind of a good people, so and that seemed easy. Homework 3, they're all like, it's just so much easier. So then I had to say, homework 4 is going to be harder.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, what I found, homework 2 is harder to. There's a lot of stumbling blocks in homework 2, and I just sort of closed that out for my class. A whole bunch of people sort of right at the tail end, oh, I couldn't deploy to Heroku, I could never get that working, and it's tough. I have a big issue with that, is that 100% of the grade depends on your ability to deploy to Heroku, and if you wind up sort of, sometimes you can get into like key issues with that can be hard to fix up. It seems like, hey, you even start in a fresh, you really have to start fresh and not make the same mistake, whatever that was, because even existing keys or existing keys in your Heroku account, all that stuff can hang at least a few people up in a way that's not easy to just sort of go in and type a few commands and fix. And if they can't get that working, they get 0 from the AutoGrader, and that to me is a problem. It also means that we can't look at their code, when they're just submitting a URL. Anyone can submit, anyone's URL, right?
Yeah.
And get 100%. So it's sort of cool that deploying to Heroku is one piece of it is in the assignment, but I don't think it should be the entire way the thing is done. But I felt that for years. We just have to do something about that. But you're right about
the URLs, though they'll be easy enough to, well, in a small class at least, of going through and seeing, are the URLs all different?
In theory, right, but you don't, it's not even simple to get a report of what the URLs are.
Oh, okay. If I look up the submission for an individual student, that won't be part of what came in?
Right. You can't see. I mean, well, you can look for the submit. You probably can look for an individual student submission, but you got to do that one by one rather than just getting here's all the URLs. And then those URLs are just like really random. So someone could be picking. in theory, they could find a URL, you know, from anyone, not necessarily someone in your class, because there have been thousands and thousands of these things created.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, I'm not primarily concerned about that, but it is one of the downsides for just saying, hey, we submit a URL. Okay, now I'm a little bit hesitant to change screens, but I looked at the old. I'll try this once more. I looked at the old agenda. Wrong place. And I didn't see and I'm sort of on right now. I know part of our issue for next week, which we can handle in email, this. Because next.
Are you still there? I've completely seen it's frozen on this end. All right, I'm back.
Okay. So I assume I was away for a while, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I will know. I still see myself freezing up here, but I don't see anything, old from last week's that was really pressing. None of us added anything new. And I started to say next week we'll have, for some of us, a daylight saving time change, and so we'll figure out whether we're doing it at, sort of the same UTC or an hour later.
Well, I think Sam had his time change as well, but a week after us. So I think the idea was we were all going to still be synced up for noon.
Okay, right. He said something like that, but especially if he's around, we can let him take the lead.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I think this is my last auto-graded assignment. So then I'm transitioning. I looked at the Oracle of Bacon and said, they don't really. While it's a good assignment, they don't really need anything from it for their projects. So,
yeah. I used, which one? No, the Oracle of Bacon, right. That I don't think I've ever used. And then there's the that efficiency homework assignment. Is that?
Oh, yeah, at the very end. Yeah.
And that's a real easy one in a sense. So one time I assigned that, as another assignment, but I was sort of thinking of it as just like a little bit of like an extra credit or a redo. It's just much, much easier to do than any of the other ones. So, yeah, my main thought coming away from one of my main thoughts coming away from last week is that, this, Armando and Dave's decision to design a course and write a book about like sort of the latest technology and really making it sort of integral to their topics in the book and in the presentations means that it's going to be a hard course to maintain. We talk about software maintenance, right? Sort of the same ideas and principles. There's like a linkage. You know, we talk about like wanting things not to be too tightly coupled in software, and they've done a sort of a tight coupling, at least from my perspective, with the software engineering concepts and this like highly evolving technology, and that's going to make their maintenance of this book sort of hard. I'm sort of thinking like, what's this book going to look like in 5 years?
But to me, that's why this is useful, because I was getting increasingly frustrated with the fact that what I was seeing in the software engineering textbooks was so decoupled from what I wanted the students to be doing. So,
oh, well, that's interesting, because I think of the coupling in a different way. I understand, yes, we want the software engineering concepts to be coupled with some sort of current issues and technology, but ideally what I would do is design it so here are the concepts and make sort of like clear, again, I'm not sure if I'm using the right terminology, but clear sort of seams between how it hooks into whatever technology you're using. So as, if we, like Sam is talking about saying, hey, the Rails is like too much and he would like to see, Sinatra used. Well, what if we wanted to plug in Sinatra? What if we wanted to plug in like more of a JavaScript-oriented approach? Those things would be hard to do, and I think the book could have been sort of written and maybe sort of redesigned, but it would be a major redesign to make that kind of coupling easier.
But I think they did think about that, in that you've sort of got, it is somewhat isolated to sort of the several chapters and then the appendices, right? Because they do sort of have then the second half of the book with the, the legacy and the agile and some of those things that are that aren't the technology, right? So you've got the Ruby chapter, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5. JavaScript must be 6, I guess, and then, but then when you get into the later chapters, it's less so. I mean, I guess when you get into the RSpec, it's still there. But
you're talking about a significant, I think you're still talking about a significant portion of the book. I mean, it may be, I'm not saying like it's totally, you'd have to throw it out and start from scratch, but I think if you had that, as a design principle or a thought when you were writing it, I think, would have structured things differently, and I think it's going to be hard to undo and extract, and, if they're not up for doing it, then what?
Yeah.
But anyway, that's something, it just came up in various conversations, even beyond my, that meeting last week, but that's a longer term issue.
All right. Well, I guess I don't have anything else.
Good. I have a lot to catch up on. I'm bringing
lots of work, lots of grading, and
I have my advising period, and then I also am bringing students. We have a ACM programming competition that is happening in our region on Saturday. So I'm bringing 10 students out to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, in a van Friday, and so that planning and all that is taking up time. So I'm keeping busy. Okay. So we can end it here. We'll follow up. See what you figure out about homework 4. Even whatever you figure out might be interesting, even just to post to the email list, and then we'll figure out. We'll get Sam involved next week and maybe have a higher turnout. I guess I'm not as big a draw as Sam, but I'm fine to be in that role.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. I'll talk to you next week.
Very good. Take care.
Good luck with the contest.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.